All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ, over there in
New York City.
Jon Tayler, Fangraphs.com, who was able to muster it even after coming off the IR here, the IL, I guess.
Yeah,
Is it IR or IL?
It's IL for baseball. IR is football and I think hockey. I don't know what the NBA calls it.
I don't know why they're allowed to just pick and choose from league to league.
It should be standardized across leagues. The injured roster, they call it the injury barn or something.
There you go. Coming off wisdom tooth surgery. I still have my bottom two that I refuse to get out until they make me get them out, and strap me in a chair. Jon Tayler, are you now done, or do you still have two left?
I still have, so I got out top right and bottom right, so I still have the two on my left side left.
Okay.
But I did not have a choice as to whether the bottom right one came out. I was in some rather significant dental pain last week, went to the dentist, and they said straight up, yeah, that thing's got to go.
Yeah.
So I gotta say, for those who've never had their wisdom teeth out, it sucks. There is no redeeming experience to it. It is just, the only wild thing to me is that I've never had a tooth pulled or extracted or anything like that. So I was mostly unaware of how the process went. And the way they do it is they apply local anesthetic and then pull the teeth. And I had figured, okay, there's going to be some kind of fancy machine to do this or some kind of like really advanced. No, they literally just pull your teeth out of your head. They like crack your teeth and just yank them out of your head. Like at one point they took a hammer and just like right there on the side, and like that's how you get rid of teeth. Apparently it's borderline medieval. Like I don't think tooth extraction, at least in terms of the tools used and the methods used, has changed in like 1,000 years. The only difference is now you get local anesthetic, so you're not conscious, or well, I'm conscious, but you're not, in hideous pain the entire time.
So you weren't asleep. You were awake.
No, they don't put you under for that one.
Oh. So you didn't feel anything. You just heard the sounds.
Yeah, so I could feel it, if only because they're pulling something. You can feel it like your jaw being moved around, and like there's pressure and pulling and tension and whatnot, but there's no pain. It's just,
oh, I would have been grabbing stuff to like knock me out, like just grabbing the pan to just feel
just taking the local anesthetic and just jabbing it directly into my forehead just to try to see if I can get it into my brain. But cannot necessarily recommend wisdom teeth. The other part of it is obviously, since they take teeth out of your head, you have to eat soft food for a little bit, because they don't want you chewing, and they don't want you as much, and they don't want you eating, especially, and they don't want you getting stuff in the cavity where your tooth used to be. So a lot of pudding and ice cream over the last week.
Okay.
Which I guess is the one upside, but the downside is I haven't had like a sandwich in like 8 days, and I could really go for a sandwich. I've just been thinking about all the sandwiches I've missed out on and how much I miss them.
What's going to be your first sandwich when you get them back?
That's tough. I'm thinking maybe a Cuban.
Okay.
Could really go for a Cuban sandwich. If not that, a chicken parm. I feel like those are the top two.
You can never go wrong with the chicken parm.
No, those I think are the top two on the table right now.
There you go. I like it. Which naturally leads us, Jon Tayler. You've had a couple weeks to sit on this one. My good friend. You've had a couple weeks. Take Graphs is back. Oh,
yes. Take Graphs is back.
What is the Jon Tayler 2 weeks away take of the week here in Major League Baseball? So I'm just cleaning my camera off.
This week's take is, in my mind, the Tampa Bay Rays are going nowhere unless they fix their bullpen.
Ooh.
I thought for a minute there, I knew you were expecting I was just going to stop at the Tampa Bay Rays are going nowhere, and just
it was a little jarring, John.
I can understand why. And look, I mean, the Rays clearly have been the best team in baseball so far this year. I think the only other team in the conversation right now is the Dodgers, and they've only just kind of begun to make their way there. But, you look at the standings where they are right now. Tampa Bay's only 3 games up on Baltimore. I guess Baltimore is the other team that, and weirdly enough, Texas, that can get into that best team in baseball conversation. Only 3 games up on Baltimore, only 5 games up on the Yankees in the AL East. The Yankees have been on fire the last about 2 weeks or so. Not a great month of May so far for the Rays. And a large part of that is, as I said, the bullpen, and this is, I think, is the thing about the Rays. For as long as they've been doing this thing where we constantly are like, they're not going to be any, they're an 80-win team. There's just not stars on this team. There's not enough depth. Every year they're better, and a large part of that is always because their bullpen outperforms pretty much all expectations. It has not been the case this year. If you look at their stats, they are 29th in their bullpen, to be clear for all of this. 29th in the league in Fangraphs WAR at negative 0.5. By the way, it should not be hard to guess who's last in the league in bullpen WAR.
Who's last?
Mm-hmm.
Mets?
The Oakland A's.
Oh, Oakland A's. See, they don't even count. Like, I just assume they're at the bottom of everything.
They are 2 wins worse than the Rays bullpen. The Rays are orders of magnitude closer to first in bullpen WAR than they are to 30th, and they're 29th. That's how bad the Oakland bullpen is.
What's the bottom 5?
In terms of overall WAR?
Mm-hmm.
For relievers? Okay. The overall WAR... Oh, whoops, I'm looking at... I had all these leaderboards open on Fangraphs, but I was over on the pitch modeling ones. Bottom 5 in WAR, Oakland, Tampa Bay, the Giants, the Brewers, and the White Sox. With the Nationals just ahead of Chicago. I don't know if... And that's before... that's as of with Tuesday stats. So yeah...
Who's the best?
The best by WAR is the Orioles, unsurprisingly. They have a very good bullpen. Colorado Rockies, 3rd in bullpen wins above replacements.
Sure.
Look. But anyway, Tampa Bay, 29th in Fangraphs WAR, 24th in ERA at 4.48, 30th in strikeout rate. That, I think, is the big one. It's just 17.6%. Consider that Baltimore, the league leader in that one, is at 28.8%. Tampa Bay is 26th in WPA, or win probability added, which is a stat that basically just measures how much a given player, or in this case, a unit, what was I going to say? How much a given player or unit adds in terms of basically the amount of win probability it basically is just a really quick and dirty way to say this guy helped, this guy hurt. Similarly, Tampa's 27th in win probability by leverage index, which is just kind of a good way of figuring out how they've been performing in high leverage situations, which is to say poorly. Home run rate of 1.112 per 9 compared to that to the league leader Seattle at 0.45. Weirdly enough, fine in the batted ball stats and the second lowest batting average on balls in play in the league. So this isn't a matter of either balls getting crushed or balls finding holes. This mostly just seems to be that Rays relievers can't really get consistent outs when they need it. And I think a lot of that, you can see it in 2 ways. One of which is, I just mentioned our pitch modeling stats on Fangraphs, both PitchBot and Stuff Plus, which basically assign overall grades on a kind of basically in the same way that ERA plus and WRC plus work, which is to say establish an average, and then above that is good, below that is bad, with each number giving you kind of a rough idea. Ray's bullpen ranks pretty low in both stuff and location by the Stuff Plus model, and I think that makes sense when you look at who is in that bullpen right now. I mean, you look per our depth charts, Pete Fairbanks and Jason Adam have both been pretty good for the most part, but then it's guys like Kevin Kelly, Trevor Kelly, Ben Heller, Cooper Criswell, Zach Littell, Jake Diekman. Like, these are not good relievers, and it's not even these aren't good relievers. These are not even average relievers. Guys like Littell and Diekman, these are bad, straight up bad relievers. And really, when you're Tampa, like, granted, they have had so much success in taking pitchers like that and making them into something better, but you're really asking a lot when it comes to guys like Jake Diekman for that to be the solution. So,
but is it enough to sink them? Isn't that where you want to be? Isn't that like just the traditional Major League Baseball cliche that, like, if the only thing that's preventing you from a deep postseason run come MLB trade deadline time is a bullpen that needs work, then you're in really good shape, because that's the easiest thing to address at the trade deadline. And
I think you're right, and I agree with that. That for as much as it's I'm saying Tampa goes nowhere without addressing their bullpen, like you said, addressing the bullpen isn't all that hard. And again, Tampa has shown a lot of skill in the past in taking guys and finding these kind of hidden gems. I mean, again, Pete Fairbanks, Jason Adam, before him, Andrew Kitteridge, before them, Nick Anderson. Like, those were not household names when the Rays found them, and they turned them into very, very efficient relievers. The thing I wonder with regards to Tampa Bay is, do they, is that incentive there for them to make that move? This is a team that has never really been all that active at the deadline, at least in terms of adding, immediate contention pieces. Instead, it's been more stuff like, and granted, this trade has worked out very, very well. But the something like the Chris Archer for Tyler Glasnow and Austin Meadows deal. It's been more stuff like that about getting long-term control. Really, the only short-term moves are stuff like let's trade for Tommy Pham, which ultimately didn't work out all that well. Or, the move they made where they gave up Jake Cronenworth. But, I think you're right. This is a problem that can be fixed for Tampa. I just, it's already, I think more to the point is it's already cost them. Again, this is a team that got off to, a 22-4 start or something, and yet here they are only 3 games up on Baltimore in the American League East, And part of this, again, is the American League East is an absolute juggernaut of a division. The Blue Jays are 3 games above 500 with one of the best offenses in baseball, and they are last place by 8.5 games. And as I'm just going to keep doing it every single time, they still have a better record than the best team in the AL Central.
I mean, if you go through it, the Fangraphs playoff percentage, it's bonkers for the AL East. 95% for the Rays, 42% for the Orioles, who are in second, mind you. 81% for the Yankees at 30-20. The Blue Jays, you just mentioned, 26-23, same as the Red Sox. But the Blue Jays, 53% playoff odds, and the Red Sox still down there at 24%. But, that's enough at late May that we can 1,000% say all 5 of these teams can make the playoffs, and it wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really amazing if they somehow managed to do that. But the fun thing to me is when you look at...
I don't mean all of them, by the way. I just mean any of those 5 combination can still very much make the playoffs.
It's just been fun. You look at the playoff odds as to, just throughout the AL East and just seeing the various, dips for all of them. Tampa has held pretty steady. I think the one that is, I think, at this point really worth looking out for is the division one. Tampa was as high as 74% basically back on May 5th. They're down to 63% now, with the Yankees being the major benefactor of that one, beneficiary, I should say. But, there is time, obviously, for the Rays to deal with this. It's just they very clearly have slowed down, although literally as I say that, Jose Siri hit a home run, so they haven't slowed down at all.
And Todd Bradley just got caught up.
And that's the thing. There are still the pieces within that system. Like Tosh Bradley got called up. Tyler Glasnow is someone who's going to be added to their rotation relatively soon.
Both there are for the Rays and for people that want to look at beautiful people.
Exactly. But I do think this, if you're gonna identify a problem spot with the Rays, and I think similarly their rotation is also an issue with Jeffrey Springs and now Drew Rasmussen out, presumably both for the year, and Springs definitely out for the year. Rasmussen probably at this point. But I do think that bullpen is something where, because this is not a matter of this is, a good group of guys where it's just one of them is struggling and some guys are. There are a lot of arms in that bullpen that are just not major league caliber, and I think that more than anything kind of worries me, because it's not just a matter of adding 1 or 2 relievers. Really, realistically, Tampa Bay needs to add 3 solid above average major league relievers at this point. If they want, I think, any real chance of emerging, not just as the division winner, but also, securing a championship for themselves. The bullpen is a real problem for them right now. And in looking at the group, the personnel that they have, I don't see it I essentially don't see it fixing itself.
It's funny too to think that they get off to the best start in franchise history, right? And one of the best starts in an MLB history.
Right.
And they're still 1,000. We're in late May, and it already looks like there is a strong possibility. They'll make the playoffs, but they're not hosting, and they're in the wild card.
Yeah, there's a good chance that the Rays get off the best start in franchise history and end up losing the division still.
Yeah.
Again, at the AL East,
most divisions, this would have been wrapped up. In just about every other division, this would have been wrapped up.
If the Rays were in the AL Central, for example, they'd be leading the Twins for first place by 8.5 games. If they were in the NL Central, similarly, they'd be about 8 games up on Milwaukee. They wouldn't necessarily be running away, I don't think, with any other division at this point. I mean, they'd be about the same up on Texas, Atlanta, and the Dodgers as they are on the Orioles right now. But, yeah, if any, unsurprisingly, this has turned into us yet again talking about how the Central divisions are the worst divisions in baseball and should be abolished and sealed in lead canisters and left in a nuclear waste site.
Look, we call it like we see it. And speaking of things we call like we see, have you gone through, because sometimes I just go through the Fangraphs, just different player pages and see how different guys are doing this year, John. And I stumbled on Jordan Lyles.
Okay.
Out there. He's 32 now.
Yes.
Kansas City. Look, this man has been in this game a long time. He's made a lot of money over his career. he's on pace for one of the worst seasons I've ever seen from a starting pitcher who I think is going to get a bunch of innings on a terrible. Like, the Royals are the biggest benefactor of the Oakland A's being off to one of the worst starts in MLB history. Like, that is something that I think is worth noting.
Yeah.
They are horrific in a horrific division, and the A's are obviously just gross in a multitude of ways.
Yes.
And it's shielding the national media from really attacking what is going on in Kansas City, because they should not be this much of a dumpster fire this year. And not only are they a gigantic dumpster fire, Jordan Lyles is just out here pitching and pitching and pitching. 0-8, Jon Tayler. 10 games started to this point. 7.15 ERA, 6.08 FIP. I'm just like going through his stuff. His BABIP's not even bad. It's 247. Like, I'm just looking at everything. I'm like, it's just horrible all across the board. I'm like, what is his final line going to be? Because I feel like it's going to be unreal how bad this is going to end for him.
Like you said, he's in this position because the Royals just desperately need pitchers. And I think I remember when the Royals signed Jordan Lyles, Michael Baumann wrote about it for us at Fangraphs, and his main takeaway was, look, someone has to pitch the innings. Like, the game literally has to, like, otherwise the game literally doesn't end. And that is one that says a lot about, I think, the Kansas City Royals for 2023. But in particular, I mean, you look at what that rotation is right now, and it's like, you know, the Royals rotation right now, I know we're going to talk a bit about the Royals later, but beyond Lyles, it's Zach Greinke, it's Brady Singer, it's Mike Mayers, who I quite literally had never heard. Oh, no, that's right. He used to be a reliever with the Angels? Why is he in the Royals starting rotation? What is happening? And again, they're young pitching. I mean, some of this is Chris Bubich blew out his arm after looking very good to start the season. That's rough. Daniel Lynch coming back from a strained shoulder, not there yet. Brad Keller, also not a good pitcher particularly, but coming back from a shoulder impingement. But you're right. I mean, the Royals, they've been a disaster. Lyles is going to keep getting those starts because they are a disaster. I mean, I'm just looking at, I had not realized the Royals are 15-35. I had not. That is the second worst record in the majors, and by a good margin too. Like, for as much as Oakland is significantly worse than the Royals are significantly worse than the next worst team is your pick of the Nationals, Reds, or I guess the White Sox and Rockies. But even there, at least something approaching.
Let's just do our spotlight here for the Royals.
Okay,
this is a natural transition. Why are they this bad, John?
I mean, we've talked about it in the past, but a large of it is just the player development has gone completely haywire.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the fact that, again, Jordan Lyles is not just in this rotation, but also has more or less a guaranteed spot no matter how badly he pitches, says a lot about that. You know, it's one thing to have Greinke back for the sentimental value and to let him retire as a Royal. I got no problems with that. And two, Greinke's actually been mostly fine this season. You know, he is far from the Royals.
At almost 40 and what his numbers look like at this point. And
throwing 85 miles an hour. Like, it's honestly remarkable that he's still doing this.
Yeah.
But again, it's a large part of this has just been the pitching development. Again, Brady Singer has not taken that major step forward, even though it looked like he had started to get there last year. Has very clearly taken a step back this year. Injuries, like I said, have hurt them with Bubich and with Lynch and with wherever Jackson Kowar currently is pitching in relief now at AAA, which is that guy was a number 33 pick in the 2018 draft, and he's already been relegated to relief, presumably for the rest of time. You know, you're at this point wondering about, you know, the top pitching prospect in this system is right now. Is it still Asa Lacy, who just has gone backwards in terms of his development? Again, that development has just not been there. Similar, I think, offensively, where you're seeing a little bit better because of guys like Nick Pratto and Vinny Pasquantino in particular, Bobby Witt Jr.
Nick Pratto to be a player long term.
But again, there's the development there. The Royals are churning out.
Having a good year at all.
Well, the thing the Royals have been churning out with regularity is guys who don't really have any concept of the strike zone or how to control it. Like Witt swings at everything. Pratto strikes out a ton. Like, guys like Michael Garcia, MJ Melendez, I think, has the highest swinging strike rate in all of baseball. Like, you know, and this is part of a tradition that already includes guys like Sal Perez. It's like you look at the other guys in this lineup: Michael Massey, Michael Garcia, Nicky Lopez. These are not guys. These are not patient hitters. These are not power hitters. These are guys who are basically just slap contact hitters. That's the majority of Kansas City's lineup is either slap contact hitters or power bats with enormous swing and miss. There's just no consistency to this lineup offensively, which I think is a large part of why they have, one, yet to crack 200 runs scored on the season as of Tuesday. Because they haven't played yet against Detroit today on Wednesday. So through Tuesday's games, they were still under 200 runs. There are only 4 other teams that can say that.
Who are those 4?
The A's at 100.
The A's are just in every bad stat. Just assume they're in every bad stat.
So this is the one that blows my mind. Cleveland has only scored 169 runs this year.
Nice.
Also, I missed Detroit. They've only scored 100. 3 of the 5 teams in the AL Central have yet to break 200 runs.
That's not surprising in the slightest.
The Rays are at 300. But yeah, it's amazing. Even within the confines of the AL Central, the Royals are this much demonstrably worse. Yeah. But a large part of that, too, is the run scored is one thing. The Royals have given up 265 runs this year. That is the second most in the entire major leagues, and you do not even need me to begin to tell you who number 1 is in runs allowed so far this season.
Is it the Oakland A's?
It is. Do you know what? This is going to be a fun game. How many runs do you think the Oakland A's have given up through their first... Now, we're at the 50-game mark for them. How many runs have they given up through 50 games?
305.
Close, but not enough. 358 runs in 50 games. That is over 7 runs a game that the Oakland A's are allowing right now.
That's so bad.
They have a run differential of almost negative 200. That has never been done in Major League Baseball before. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. They're 100 runs worse than the Royals are in run differential.
That's crazy.
I mean, again, I know this is our Royals moment, but
yeah.
And I don't want to say appreciate the A's, but
I mean, you have to group the A's and the Royals right now to emphasize just how bad the Royals are, that they are in so many shared categories with the worst team in baseball, and it's not particularly close.
And not just the worst team in baseball, but what's the word I'm looking for? But intentionally the worst team in baseball. This is a team that got rid of everyone that could add any value to them because John Fisher does not care at all about fielding even a competent baseball club in Oakland because he's mentally left Oakland years ago. The Royals, you could say, are at least still trying to a certain degree. Were they out there in the offseason making big additions? Absolutely not. That's not how this team really has ever operated, or at least not since Chuck Finley died. Or not Chuck Finley, Charles O. Finley, sorry.
Charles does go by Chuck.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure people weren't saying I think that former Cleveland pitcher Chuck Finley and former Cleveland and Angels pitcher Chuck Finley has died, or is no longer with us, or what have you. But point of it all being, the Royals did not come into the season saying, "Look, we're not even going to try. This is pointless because we don't care." There was ostensibly, a desire in Kansas City to be like, "Hey, let's develop these guys. Let's see what we got in these young guys. Let's." See if we can't make some smart additions on the margin. It just hasn't worked. And again, you get to the point where it's like the player development is bad. The free agent targeting is bad. The player development at the major league level is bad. At a certain point, you kind of feel like the only solution here is to turn it all over. I think when you talk about the Royals, the question just kind of really becomes, why don't they seem like they know what they're doing? Again, it's one thing when it's the A's who are actively not trying. It's another thing when it's a team that just fundamentally doesn't seem to know how to build a functional ball club at either end of things. Again, this is one of the worst offenses in the majors and the worst non-Oakland pitching staff in the majors. That's a really they failed on both sides of the ball, and defensively this team isn't any good either. So it just, you kind of sit there and wonder, it's like, what are the talent evaluators in this organization seeing that is just so different and basically wrong from everything else? This is not, and this team is not charting a path where you're like, there's like, oh, there's some kind of secret hidden development plan. It's like, no, they just make decisions where you scratch your head and go, well, why would you do that?
Yeah.
I think it's in a lot of ways it reminds me of the Rockies, and it reminds me of the Tigers, although maybe less so with Detroit now, but still they're in pretty bad shape as well, where the decisions that have been made in the past and the player development decisions that continue to be made, you're just they're perplexing because they just never work out. And at a certain point, it's just that Albert Einstein aphorism about the definition of insanity being, repeating the same action over and over again and expecting different results. And that's pretty much what's happening with the Royals. You can't keep doing this and expecting things to change. Like, at a certain point, it's the decision makers who need to change. Yeah. And I do wonder when that time comes, because as we said before, Dayton Moore is not in charge here anymore. JJ Piccolo, his handpicked deputy, is the one in charge of the Royals front office now. But that line from Moore to Piccolo is, more or less an unbroken one, because again, that was his deputy, and it's not changing anything in Kansas City either. The results have not changed with Dayton Moore no longer in charge, and it makes me think that the next step here is just you have to clean house, because the Royals not just struggle with the player development, they've wasted so many high draft picks in the process, on pitchers who are just very clearly not going to work out going forward. Again, Jackson Kowar is already a reliever. Daniel Lynch is probably a reliever going forward too. If all of this amounts to Brady Singer, who's basically a mid-rotation arm at best, and maybe Asa Lacy somewhere down the line, I don't really know how the Royals can look at that and go, this has been a success. And to that point, it's like, well, then something needs to change. And it does feel like it has to be the people in charge.
Speaking of something that needs to change, the Phillies really need Trae Turner to be good at baseball again.
Yes, they do.
Like, they really need that turnaround.
They got it today. Is that going
to be a yearly thing, by the way? Is it just Castellanos and then Trae Turner, and it's just going to be year over year, just
every big free agent the Phillies sign the first year they're there, it's just going to be garbage juice. I'm actually looking up Harper's numbers in his first year in Philly to see what that looked like, and actually it was mostly fine. But I mean, definitely a step down from where he had been in Washington to a certain degree, but it was mostly fine. But yeah, I mean, granted, the Phillies got Turner to homer today to tie the game against Arizona on Wednesday afternoon, and ended up winning that game. So that just goes more to your point. The Phillies really need a good Trae Turner in order to be winners. It's funny that when you look at Turner's numbers, I mean, the thing that obviously stands out where you're like, oh, well, this is the problem. He's just striking out all the time now.
Yeah,
one of the highest strikeout rates in the majors, one of the highest chase rates in the majors, one of the, everything in terms of swing and chase decisions have all gone the wrong way, and all the contact is equally going in the wrong way. So, it really, I think, is as simple for the Phillies. Not even simple, but I want to say simple because I'm not a swing mechanics guy. I have no idea what, if anything, could be done differently with Turner. But if you're the Phillies, there's nothing you can really do. He's just in a really, really bad slump. I think if there's one maybe potential concern you have as the Phillies, it's like this is the second year in a row that Turner's chase rate has shot up. And it's, you're kind of wondering, it's like, okay, well, what's going on with the decision making here? Why are we at a place where you're suddenly making worse decisions and making less contact? But I also don't think that, I don't think anyone expects Trae Turner to be a 30-plus strikeout rate guy going forward. Some of this will change. I think a lot of the too is he's just getting killed on fastballs right now. You look at the numbers he has on them, 282 weighted on base average against fastballs. You can't hit fastballs, everything is just going to suffer. That is the building block for a hitter, is being able to hit fastballs when they are thrown your way. Also a large part of why Turner's numbers in the strike zone have collapsed, why his run value in the heart of the zone has collapsed. Again, you need to be able to hit fastballs. And I don't know right now for him if that's a timing thing, a mechanics thing, just a pure psychological thing. But until he gets that figured out, this is just, I think, how it's going to be. Because Turner, I mean, at the very least with Turner, he's still one of the best base runners in the game. He's still a perfectly fine defender at shortstop. Not elite, but, not a disaster by any stretch of the imagination. So, he's not exactly hurting the Phillies in that regard. But again, I don't, this is just who Turner is going to be until he manages to correct whatever the issue is against fastballs and stops chasing so much.
I think it's just, I'm more likely, like, Trae Turner's at least shown it, where Nick Castellanos, like, we were like, he really might just be this bad now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you want to have a conversation about which Philly should you be more worried about, Castellanos by a million miles. Yeah. Because, like you said, this is a second straight year where you're just not really seeing the power. And as we've noted many times, he's defensively a train wreck. So he needs to add value with his bat, or else he is a net negative.
Yeah. I also just, it's funny too. Like Brandon Marsh, who's been awesome for them, right?
Yes.
Like Brandon Marsh out in center, he's been great. Like there's now this weird part of Twitter where like Angel fans are like trying to dunk on Phillies fans over the Mickey Moniak development in Los Angeles.
What a sad life Angels fans online live, where those are the kinds of wins you have to take.
Right?
We got Mickey Moniak, and he's actually good. Come on, guys. What are we doing?
And it's not really a dunk because, like, Brandon Marsh has been awesome. So Philly fans are fine. Like, they were just in the World Series partly because Brandon Marsh is awesome. So I think they're fine with that move. That's not really a dunk on situation, like you said. This is where Angels fans are, where they're like, ha, you couldn't develop Mickey Moniak.
This is what they've got. And I mean, the sad thing is you can just shoot back to any Angels fan. You literally have wasted the prime of the second coming of Mickey Mantle, and then you got the second coming of prime Babe Ruth, and you're going to waste that too. It's like,
yeah.
There's probably no group of baseball fans on the earth, with the exception of like Rockies and A's fans, can't even talk trash. What is there? They're all depressed and sad at this point. I think the Rockies fans are probably the only other group of fans where you're like, well, you are not allowed to like talk crap to any fan base at this point. It's like when you live in such a swamp of mediocrity. But yeah, it's the Phillies. That's kind of the thing with the Phillies is like, if Castellanos is going to be struggling like this going forward, and if because guys like Marsh, and to a certain degree it's already happened, are going to come back down to earth. Alec Boehm is going to come back down to earth. Bryson Stott's going to come back down to earth. It's the elite guys in Schwarber, Turner, Harper, and Real Muto, particularly with Rhys Hoskins done for the year, who are going to need to make the biggest impact for Philly. And they're not really going to get there without Turner being himself. And I think similarly in the rotation, they're not going to get there without Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola being their best selves. There's just not enough depth for them to do that. So, which I think has been the issue with Philly when it comes to picking them as a real contender, is that the depth has just never really seemed to be there. I do wonder, and maybe this should have been my take of the week, that we all overrated the Phillies based off of a 5-week hot streak in October that realistically, and I don't know if we talked about it.
There, I think it's fine. The Phillies could easily make some.
No, I mean
Dombrowski's going to do some stuff.
They're still a good team, and I think I think they'll be in the playoff conversation. But I think there was a feeling after that World Series of, wow, this is the Phillies team we were all waiting for. Finally, it's all come together. They look like world beaters. It's going to be great. When in reality, it's like they got hot for, again, 5 weeks in October in a format designed almost explicitly for you to be able to get away with not having long-term roster depth. There's a reason why the Phillies finished where they finished during the regular season, which is to say, slightly above 500 as a wild card team. It's, because they didn't have the depth necessary to weather all the ups and downs during the season. Again, does that mean that they're not contenders, or they can't win the playoffs? Absolutely not. We just saw it last year. They have a roster that is very good for the playoffs, and they have the two aces in Wheeler and Nola. They have that really tough middle of the lineup. They have, at least when Jose Alvarado is healthy, a really good shutdown core in that bullpen. But the problem for them is going to be getting there.
Yeah.
Because again, just like the AL East, the NL East is the NL East has been a lot messier and continues to get messy. But it's not an easy division by any stretch.
It's just the Braves are the best team again. Like, every year.
I think
everyone just keeps trying not to give the Braves the NL East. And the Braves are just going to go 14 straight again. And it's just, they're going to be favored, or before the year, they're going to be picked to win it like 6 of those times.
I mean, I think, I can't remember what exactly my predictions were before the season, but I'm pretty sure I had Atlanta winning the NL East anyway. Yeah. It's, for me, they're in that stage. It's like Trout with MVP votes, where it's like, I'm just not going to bet against them because they have to. Someone else has to prove they're better before I just assume that the best is no longer the best.
I would just like Michael Harris to start hitting again because Michael Harris has been
he's been very bad.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Atlanta has its own issues. The Max Fried injury is, as we talked about,
he might not be back till August.
That's a really, really bad injury for them. And granted, Mike Soroka has looked really good in AAA and might be coming up. Jared Schuster had a really nice start last time out.
I just don't trust Schuster.
But I think that's the thing. Like, you're still... Look, Spencer Strider is one of the 5 best starters in baseball right now. Absolutely no question.
Looked bad last night, though.
But then you're relying on Charlie Morton, who continues to look, more and more mortal as time goes on. You're relying on Soroka coming back from basically 2 years of not pitching. Although, as James Paxton is showing, apparently that's not a really huge impediment.
Yeah.
You're relying on one of Schuster or Dylan Dodd, or ideally both, to
Bryce.
hit.
Bryce.
I mean, Bryce Elder, and that's the other one. You're relying on Bryce Elder to be better than, I think, I mean, not to say that Bryce Elder has been a fluke
Bryce
necessarily.
Is fine. Like, I think he's sustainable as a 5. Like,
that's the thing. I think he's a more sustainable. I mean, you look at his Baseball Savant page. There's a lot of blue. There's This is a guy who is very much outperforming his peripherals. Again, I think
Strong
a guy
Aaron Harang energy from
especially because this is a dude who throws 90 on average. Like this is someone you'd feel far more comfortable with as your fifth starter. Right now, he is the locked in number 3 on this team.
Yeah,
and
granted,
you don't
want that.
That may not be the case, but like I feel a little. I think the worry for the Braves is in both Kyle Wright and Max Fried, you have two guys where you're not necessarily sure they're going to be back this season, where they're both dealing with arm issues, where any setback is going to make it really, really hard for them to get back on a mound.
Yeah.
With Wright for this shoulder that just is clearly not healed properly.
Is it weird I'm more confident that Fried makes it back than Wright?
I think so, if only because for Fried, this seems to be some kind of one of those kind of fluke arm things, as opposed to with Wright, where this is clearly an ongoing chronic
like a
issue with him.
shutdown for the year type deal and get it
Look,
right.
and I wouldn't be surprised if of those two, Wright is the one who doesn't make it back, if they only end up getting Fried back. But, I mean, I also do have a lot of confidence that Alex Anthopoulos, by the time the trade deadline rolls around, will be able to solve whatever problem is in front of him.
Yeah.
I think if you're the Braves, part of the issue is you have a lot of problems in front of you right now. The rotation is thin. They seem to have broken AJ Minter completely. He has looked horrendous when he's pitched, and I don't know that bullpen works without him being able to get 3 to 6 outs on the regular. You're already down Tyler Matzik. Raisel Iglesias has been a little slow in.
Dylan Lee's now been really good for us, and he's out.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like so much of that, not only the Braves' division streaks, but also in recent years, but also their championship. That is in large part thanks to that bullpen being able to get, particularly in the postseason, 12 to 15 outs every single night. And I don't know if you're a Braves fan that you trust this current group right now. Granted, obviously it's only Memorial Day weekend. We're still miles away from the playoffs, but you especially again with Minter pitching as poorly as he's pitched, I don't know how comfortable and confident you feel, particularly when on top of that the rotation needs help too. And like you said, there are issues with Michael Harris has not looked right since coming back off the injured list. There's an open question as to whether or not you're going to get a consistent enough offense out of the DH spot if you're going to insist on using Marcelo Ozuna there. Shortstop seems to be, I guess, has rebounded somewhat now that you have Orlando Arcia back in the mix. But there are some definite questions in Atlanta. I think the bonus for them is that the Mets are just as uneven themselves. And the Mets and Phillies are just as uneven, and that the Marlins really just don't seem to have the juice to make any kind of run.
No, I don't think so either. I think it's going to get figured. And you know what helps? And not that he needs any more praise, but like Ron Acuna just being a super world player at the moment.
Yeah, imagine it's kind of
a lot of these issues.
It's kind of similar with the Yankees with Aaron Judge. It's like, can you imagine where the Braves would be if Ronald Acuna had not just transformed back into Ronald Acuna?
Yeah.
It's a really, he stole his 20th base yesterday. We are 50 games into the season and he's on pace to steal 60 bases. Mm-hmm. That's absurd. He's a genuine threat to go 30-50.
Yeah.
When's the last time someone did that? Ever? It's been a very long time since someone, I think even since we got, I'm looking it up now, just the full 30-30 club, just want to do it by year. Actually, I can't. Yeah. So we had Cedric Mullins do it in 2021. So that we did have it recently. I'd forgotten about that. He did it on the dot, 30-30. Then Mookie Betts and Jose Ramirez both did it in 2018. And if you say a single word after that, I will unplug my mic and walk away. Mm-hmm. We haven't had a 40-40 season since A-Rod in 98, and before him Canseco in 88. And it's apparently pretty clear that to get to that particular level, you needed some level of pharmaceutical help. But to answer my own question, we have never had a 30-50 season. The most we've ever gotten, I think, is A-Rod's 42 and 46 back in 1998. That is pretty much the gold standard for power and speed, and that's what Acuna is approaching. I mean, look, there's a chance he ends up anyway with something like Alfonso Soriano's near 40-40 season in 2002, but that's bonkers enough on its own. So, look, it's scary to think for Braves fans to think about where that team would be without Acuna right now, but there are some genuine issues that need to get taken care of there. Again, particularly with the bullpen and the rotation.
Yeah. I think so too. We'll see what happens, but I'm not I'm not really concerned. They're going to find a way, and they're going to get healthy, and they're going to get healthy.
Yeah, I mean,
and they'll figure it out. If there's one franchise I'm not worried about in Atlanta figuring it out, it's the Atlanta Braves.
And I feel the same way. Like I said, Anthopoulos is a savvy GM who knows how to target problem areas and how to fix them. I think the one thing you're worried about Atlanta, if you're Atlanta, is neither Fried nor Wright is a lock to come back. And if you lose one of them for the season, you can survive that. If you lose both of them for the season, you are in some real trouble down the stretch, and particularly in the postseason.
Well, you got Jordan Schaefer, the pitcher, rising through the ranks. AJ, what is it? Schuster. What is his name? He has a weird hyphenated last name. AJ. He's moving up already to AAA. He's gotten his control.
Oh, you're the Braves guy. I'm just over here trying to wing it in
what
Braves
is his
County.
Name? It's like it's all these hyphenated. What is it? AJ something. AJ Braves prospect.
Did they talk to the Braves on Georgia Sports Radio at all?
Do they talk to what?
Did the Braves
Shawyer, by the way?
Did the Braves get talked about on Georgia Sports Radio?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Is it...
Yeah.
Okay.
They have a strong one. The Hawks are the ones who get overlooked. Like, the Hawks get...
Well, to be fair, they're the Atlanta Hawks, and they're not a real franchise.
Wow.
Every game they've played has been a figment of our collective imagination.
Wow. Well, what I'll say about the Braves is, like, they actually still... Because there's so many... There's so many Georgia fans who are also Braves fans. Like, Kirby threw out the first pitch, I think, yesterday for the Braves, and, like... They do so many different like college night tours, like Tennessee night.
When is Stetson Bennett throwing out the first pitch?
It's a good question. He may already have. I don't know. I'm not there anymore. I don't see before games like what they're doing. But I don't know. I think
he's got. I'm just going to steal the joke shamelessly from Spencer Hall. He's got a Kia dealership to promote. You know.
Mm-hmm. And AJ Smith Shawver was that guy who's rising through the ranks at 20 years old. So he's basically the number one pitching prospect in the pipeline. So we'll see if he makes it into. It wouldn't be the craziest thing because guess what? Who saw Spencer Strider being an ace last year?
To say
Atlanta?
Nothing of what Michael Harris has done. And like, you know, the Braves have a knack for doing this stuff. And worst comes to worst, they can always call up the A's and be like, hey, do you want to give us another really good player for literally nothing? And the A's will go, of course we do, because we're not a real franchise. So that's always an option as well.
Yeah. I think so too. Oh, look, the dog has made an appearance. This is why you watch on youtube.com.
Yeah, so you can just, every now and then a dog will just pop up on the stream.
Mm-hmm. You never know when, but it will probably happen.
You'll be able to hear them before you see them, but then they'll be there.
Absolutely. John.
Yes.
Our last team spotlight here.
Yes.
The Brewers.
The Brewers.
Are they back, John? Are the Brewers back? Do they want to win the NL Central? Are they going to sell off again come trade deadline? Like, stop it, Cardinals. You're putting us in a terrible bind once again. We're going to have to host playoff games.
Cardinals are making me look like a total ass, by the way.
Well,
after I was going out to town on the Cardinals will not make the playoffs, and here they are, only 5.5 games back in this trash division, only 3.5 games out of a wild card spot. I'm sorry, what?
What's their playoff odds now on Fangraphs?
I was actually just about to look that up. Per our current odds, I don't think this has been updated for... Well, no, they haven't played today, so it doesn't matter. But as of... wait, this is their...
I beat you, 44%.
Okay, because I just clicked on entirely the wrong thing within Fangraphs. Good job by me, the person who works literally for Fangraphs.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned when we did this 2 weeks ago that even when the Cardinals were like 12 games under 500, their playoff odds were still like 23% or something. So yeah, I'm not at all surprised that they're already getting close to 50-50 from where they are, you know, from just because, again, like, and I think you make a good point with the Brewers where it's like, I don't know that you can necessarily trust that they are going to keep this all together and try it. And I think a large part of this is because Corbin Burns is struggling so badly. I mean, look, this is a team that is in first place in the NL Central despite a negative run differential. So already we're off to a place where it's like they're overperforming based on the available metrics we have. But they're down Brandon Woodruff. Corbin Burns has not looked nearly like his usual Cy Young winning self. Mm-hmm. They still have a good option there in Willie Peralta, but a lot of their other arms have been lost to injury. You know, they're starting Julio Teheran tonight. That's not, you don't want to be at the starting Julio Teheran stage of the season by Memorial Day. That's not good. Something's gone really wrong if you Julio Teheran, who's already pitched for one other organization this year. This is already organization number 2 for him. The Brewers signed him like 3 days ago and are just throwing him out there with no anything. Just be like, all right, Julio, go on, buddy. Are you looking up how old Julio Teheran is? Because it is a number that is still far too low for what it should be.
No, I'm actually looking at because I wanted to double check.
No, I'm
this.
going to look it up because it's just going to. He's only like 34 years old or something. It's kind of staggering. He's 32 years old. How is that possible?
He came up really young, but I was looking at
Julio Teheran's been in baseball since at least 1999. Like there's no way he's only 32 years old.
Well, I was looking because like,
come on, man.
He had a streak where, I mean, it was just a thing where like he was never a number one, but he was just always there and just was always available, which matters. But he just every year he just went into the year like he's our opening day starter. And I was like, how many did he end up doing? He was the opening day starter, John, from 2014 to 2019. He did 6 consecutive opening day starts.
That's amazing.
Glavine and Schmaltz also only did 4. Maddox had 5. So just to be clear, Julio Teheran had more opening day starts for the Braves than Maddox, Schmaltz, and Glavine. The all-time record holder is Phil Niekro with 8.
To be fair, when you think about opening day starts, I mean, the Red Sox opening day starter this year was Corey Kluber. He just got demoted to the bullpen today. So
that man is cooked.
Oh yeah, that dude has grill marks all over him. You cut him open and it is just brown on the inside. He is that Trey Wingo steak. It just looking like it was cooked with a frickin' flamethrower inside of a steel factory.
Are you a rare or a medium person?
I'm a rare, or at the very least medium rare, or at the most I should say medium rare. I should say medium rare because I don't generally like eating rare steak. There are some, if that's how the steak is supposed to be served, okay, fine. Like, I'm not going to say, no, go to hell, petty chef. But if I'm just ordering for myself, I'll take a medium rare. If I'm at like a backyard barbecue, I'll probably just go medium to be safe. But
have you seen that meme where it's like the guy at the barbecue who's cooking everybody's steaks or burgers and everything, who's like, he asks like, how does everyone like their steak or burgers cooked, knowing full well that he's going to cook them all the exact same for everybody? Like,
and it's like no one's going to be able to tell the difference unless there really is someone there who wants their steak.
Hey, Johnny, how do you want your burger cooked? That okay? I'll pull it out individually and then toss that one and make sure that one's getting taken care of in a different way.
Unless Donald Trump is at your cookout and he wants his burnt to a crisp, well done steak with ketchup, like no, you're not like. Because you're not going to get someone who's going to be able to tell the difference. But
no, if he's at your cookout, you're getting Wendy's.
But yeah, like just redo the Auburn spread, but just back at him.
He's doing that, and he's like, "Look at this spread that I've created for you all."
Well, I think he would like that anyway. I think if you were to invite Donald Trump to a cookout, he probably would be like, "Can we just get the McDonald's? They make such a great hamburger, the best hamburger. Everyone loves it.
Why do it ourselves? It's already been established.
Exactly.
They already know what they're doing over there.
Just pull a steamed ham and just go get your food from somewhere else. Just save yourself all the trouble and just give him like." Freaking Jack in the Box. Like, what does he care? That man's entire diet for the last minimum 2 decades has been like KFC and the inside of couch pillows. Like, who cares? He can't. That man has no taste buds. They all went on strike years ago, and his response was okay, fine. Were we talking about the Brewers? I don't remember at this point. This is how useless the Central divisions are. Mm-hmm. We get 2 minutes into talking about them, and we're both like, "This is boring." Actually, let's just talk about steak.
Yeah,
way more entertaining to talk about steak than the Milwaukee Brewers. But I mean, the Brewers they have the twofold problem: is their pitching has not, or better said, their pitching has been the thing that has always had to carry them. The pitching in the bullpen, or the rotation in the bullpen, rather. The rotation obviously has been a problem with Woodruff hurt and with Burns not pitching up to his usual capacity. The bullpen, I think, aside from Devin Williams, has not been very good either. That's exposed the fact that their offense is just, again, one of the weaker groups in baseball. Not the worst not necessarily by like leaps and bounds. This is the A's we're talking about. But at the same time, you look at our team batting stats by weighted runs created plus our kind of catch-all offensive metric. Milwaukee ranks 22nd in the majors with a 93 WRC plus. That's not good. That's just not a good number. And you look at that roster, and there's no real reason to think it's necessarily going to get better. You can argue that maybe if there's a kind of second wind of sorts for guys like Joey Wiemer and Bryce Terang, after they've learned the majors, now they're starting to make the adjustment back to pitching. But both of those guys are also big swingers who were never really kind of lauded as like well-rounded offensive types, and similarly, like I don't think Jackson Churio is in the conversation to come up yet. The dude is only, I think, 20 years old. It'd be very much a lot to bring him up and basically be like, okay, Jackson, young teenage boy, you are charged with saving the Brewers season.
Only the Braves can do that.
Only the Braves can do that. Sal Frelick is hurt. The guys who would ostensibly be there to pick them up on offense from internally, they're either already there and not particularly performing, or they're hurt. So there's not really Garrett Mitchell, another guy, but he's currently sidelined with an injury, which I believe might actually be a season ender. Yeah, he had shoulder surgery at the beginning of May. He's done for the year. That's another one of their top hitting prospects who will not be able to make any impact going forward. And not Milwaukee, great. As you've said, like they sold last year at the deadline. This is not a team that ever really never spends in free agency and never really makes the big trades, at the deadline. That's not really their style. So I don't really know if you're Milwaukee, like what the reason is, or if you're a Brewers fan, like, they're in a good spot or a decent spot right now, but I don't really know what the belief is that this team isn't essentially just going to be 500 going forward. Is that going to be enough to win the NL Central?
It's what they want.
But that's the thing. So it's just weird, kind of sad that that's what you just aim for in the Central. Just be 500 and hope you get some lucky bounces to turn 81 wins into 85. But that's basically the Brewers' strategy at this point, until and unless Burns gets better and Woodruff comes back healthy.
I think we should all root against it. Like, it just would be so boring. The Brewers aren't winning the pennant. Like, let's just...
I think you could say that about any Central team with the possible exception of, I can't believe I'm saying this, the Cardinals.
I mean, they have the most upside. But I also think it's wild the Cardinals bounced out of this, because I just think they're so volatile that even if they do bounce back, there's so much opportunity for them to bounce back the other way. With the Ollie Marmol weird stuff and the back... Like, what was it, like, the public, whether, like, some stuff should be kept in-house? Like,
the whole airing of grievances with regards to Tyler O'Neill not busting out of the box
that could happen again this summer. That could happen again. Like,
look, I don't get Ollie Marmol as a manager just generally, so I'm with you that I think if there's a significant non-player weak link on the Cardinals, it's probably that, but... Yeah. No, look, I would give all 5 NL Central teams a collective 0.0% chance to win the World Series. They're not good enough teams to do that. But so yeah, I think it's almost like at that point, then who cares really who wins the Central? It's going to be either a Brewers team that's trying to do it on the cheap, a Cardinals team that's trying to do it on the cheap, a Cubs team that's trying to do it on the cheap, a Pirates team that's trying to do it on the ultra cheap, or a Reds team that's basically the A's with better PR. Like,
is Dansby Swanson the Jeff Blauser of modern baseball?
Sure, why not? He's been great. He's been genuinely great in Chicago. It's it's funny. I don't know that Atlanta lost that bet necessarily, if only because it was clear that their issue wasn't 2023 but 2025 and beyond.
And also Orlando Arcia is fine.
It's fine, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing. Or Arcea's been good enough that I don't think even if you asked Anthopoulos if you could take it back, would you probably say, no, we're good where we are.
No, because he's going to say, like, we got to pay Michael Harris in a little bit. We got to pay some other
guys.
They
already did pay Michael Harris.
Well, I mean, like, other guys. Like, down the line, because, like, when that comes up in a couple of years, like, there are going to be other guys that they already have in the background that they have to think about paying.
That is true.
He's just not a core piece. Like, they're going to pay certain guys.
And like I said, like their issue was never how is Dansby Swanson going to perform in 2023. It's how is Dansby Swanson going to perform in 2026.
He's sneaky, almost 30. Like,
yeah, I mean that is the danger with college bats. Is that you are getting a guy whose peak is that much closer and whose prime will theoretically be that much shorter. But
I mean that's why Drew Gilbert will be an Astro come playoff time this year.
I don't necessarily disagree with it because Chas McCormick has been both hurt and inefficient, and then Jake Myers has been better. But I mean, look, Houston. Without getting into Houston's whole mess of problems, Houston does have some problems that Drew Gilbert could be well suited to fix or at least help with.
I just don't think people who are not Tennessee fans or even college baseball fans understand just how much Major League Baseball fans are going to hate Drew Gilbert if he's good. Like, Drew Gilbert has the machismo. He has this aura about him. The bat flips are going to be strong.
Are you're starting to? It sounds like you're describing Marshall Henderson, but baseball.
Yes, but a lot better than Marshall Henderson.
Okay, that would rule because Marshall Henderson ruled. I was a huge Marshall Henderson fan. Yes. If it turns out that he did something that was subsequently terrible, I'm just saying now I didn't know about it. I'm sorry, but the on-court persona and character of Marshall Henderson was a giant A+ for me every time. I loved that level of just absolute unrepentant shit talking.
Yeah. And look, Drew Gilbert is going to do that. He is a high energy guy. He leaves his, like, he's just going to be someone who in the Astros organization who already has a target on their back. He is a perfect fit because he is going to piss so many people off with the way he plays. Like, he's going to be good and it's going to piss people off. But I'm here for it because I will ride for Drew till the end of time. And also, because I am a capital J journalist, John, and a fair fan, Marcell Ozuna's wrong. And his stuff is wrong. Like, if I'm Will Smith, I would be annoyed too. And you go back and look at he's been hit in the head by him a lot. Like, it's not like this one time thing. You go back through it and his weird spots you gotta adjust. If I'm Will Smith, I'm pretty pissed off about that. Like, getting hit in the head like that.
Yeah, I would be too. Like,
this is
I
not
don't
a
want to
common
get
baseball
concussed.
thing where it's like, you can't clean that up. Really? You can't? This is not a problem any other Major League Baseball player is having, where they just keep hitting the catcher in the head.
Yeah, I've never heard of this being a consistent thing, especially with one guy. But
yeah,
I mean, it does always feel also like Ozuna's kind of in the middle of a lot of this stuff, where it's like it's like that saying, it's like you run into an asshole. Well, that's just bad luck. You keep running into assholes. Maybe you're the asshole.
Right.
So I wonder if something is kind of going on there with Ozuna. Does not strike me as someone that anyone other than his teammates particularly like.
Not a lot of self-awareness. It doesn't seem like there.
No, very much not.
Jon Tayler, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at Fangraphs.com this week?
Our most recently released top prospect list, the New York Mets top 37 for 2023.
I'm sorry, you do the Fangraphs line, and your dog just whining right as you're doing it.
I know,
it's so funny.
Why is this your timing, little buddy? Okay, you're just gonna be like this, aren't you? Come here.
I just heard I'm imagining if your dog could talk. If you're like, fucking what? You're doing an ad for Fangraphs? I thought we were done. Yeah.
2 minutes, all right, bud. Our top 37 prospects in the Mets system, that just came out today, or on Tuesday, I believe. Wednesday, today, whatever day it is. Is this a weekday? I don't even know anymore.
It is a weekday.
Definitely check that out. I liked Ben Clemens writing about Nolan Gorman and how he's turned himself into one of the best hitters in baseball, speaking of the Cardinals. I also liked Michael Baumann talking to Zach Gallen about his season to date. He went down to Philly because Baumann is a Philly guy, and talked to South Jersey native Zach Gallen, actually. But yeah, so check out the top prospect list. More of those are coming all the time. We're going to have a Cardinals one coming out at the end of the week on Friday. Our St. Louis Cardinals top X prospects. The X stands for a number that has yet to be determined. But yeah, as always, come on over to Fangraphs, sign up for a membership. $5 a month, $60 a year for ad-free browsing, plus you get to support the site. Check out our recently added merch. We've got new t-shirts, plus, and now that the summer is here, mesh shorts for those of you who want to show off your pale legs. Next time you're at the ballpark and want something comfy with the little Fangraphs logo on it, check out our mesh shorts.
I'm looking at this. Where is this on this site?
We had a post about it semi recently, but that actually is a good reminder that we need to update our store site. Yeah. But I have asked about a tank top to go with the shorts. We're waiting to see on that. Check out. We're gonna have some more cool new t-shirts coming down the line. I think people will be really into. But yeah, Fangraphs.com. Come on over, sign up, get nerded, get your brain nerded. I'm getting better at those, I swear.
No, they're good. The Effectively Wild ones are good too. How can you know? Like, there's some good stuff here. I like that gray Fangraphs with the green letter font.
Yeah, I mean, we got some good design on our site. You should. Yeah. We'll make sure to get the store link updated with our most recent stuff.
There you go. Jon Tayler, always a pleasure, my friend, and I will talk to you next week.
Well done, nephew. Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.